Hi everybody, my name is Kathy Baker, and I'd like to tell you a story that has fascinated others and still fascinates me to this day, and yet it's the true story on what happened to me. On May 16th, year 1985, I had an NDE, near-death experience. I was going into the hospital to give birth, a routine thing that women go in for, giving birth, yet mine was not routine. I had gone into labor and was in labor for 19 hours, and I didn't dilate to any more than 2. So my doctor decided that we needed to go in for a Caesarean section. So there I went off into the operating room, and in came the anesthesiologist, and he administers the epidural, which goes into your back. In the process of putting the epidural in, there was an accident, and he put it into my veins by mistake. And it was at that point that I was having trouble breathing. The doctors were already starting to cut me open and take the baby out. As I told the anesthesiologist that I said I was dying, I'm dying. I knew I was dying as sure as I'm sitting here with you talking to you. The anesthesiologist had asked me, "What are you talking about?" And I said, "I'm dying." And at that point, I'm reaching for my throat because I can't breathe. I'm suffocating to death. It was a horrible, horrible process of suffocating. Next thing I knew it, I started to go into convulsions. And at that moment, I popped up out of my body and I was hovering above my body. I was looking down at my body, listening to all the commotion that was going on in the room, and I mean, they were screaming and yelling in there, "Sew her up, sew her up, we have no blood pressure, we've lost her, we've lost her." Pandemonium. I turned and I saw what they call the crash team, the resuscitating team, coming in to resuscitate me. I looked down at everybody and I saw these silver cords out of each person's solar plex attached to one another. And I looked at my lifeless body on the table, and there was a cord coming from the table, from my body, up to where I was hovering above my body. Later, I would be told that this was the connection that everybody had in this world. We couldn't see these silver cords on the earthly plane, but it shows how we're all connected. At that point, as I'm hovering above my body and I'm watching them, I'm quite confused on why they're all panicking, because I was fine. I looked at myself, my body wasn't whole as we know whole, but I was okay. And it was at that moment I looked off to my left, and there was a very loving, beautiful, radiant voice, who I call God, that said to me, "Kathy, it's okay. Go up the tunnel to the light." And at that moment, I surged up the tunnel. It was a black, dark tunnel, but you could see. As I was going up the tunnel, I had passed beings that gave me such love. The love was incredible as I passed each one. I headed up towards the light, and the light was so bright, but it doesn't hurt your eyes. It's a beautiful, radiant light that I went up, and as I stepped through that light, there were green pastures and brilliant flowers everywhere. And I remember turning to my left and looking at all these beings that were in line to want to come back to this earth. And they were all so happy, and I couldn't understand, why are they so happy to come back to this earthly plane? I had just left there, and I was so glad to be up, being in this light, being free, being home. And it was at that moment I turned and looked, and there were the dogs and cats running so free and happy through the fields. And it made my heart just so warm because I have such a love for animals. Next thing I knew it, off to my right comes up this beautiful, young, radiant woman. She looked familiar to me, but I thought, how could she be familiar to me? I don't know who she is. And she said, "Catherine." I said, "Yes." She said, "I'm your grandmother, Catherine." And I thought, how could you be so familiar to me? Because she had committed suicide before I was born. She continued to tell me what her life was about and what led up to her suicide and what happened after. And after that, I had gone through my own life review. The life review was one of a lot of pain, a lot of sorrow, and a lot of happiness. Every life that I touched, whether an action was performed or not performed, whether I said anything or I didn't say anything, it was the results of what had happened. And the pain could be, oh gosh, just like a knife that's cutting through you. After my life review, I had walked up this beautiful road and I was taken to a house, and it was a house, once again, of these beautiful lights in every color imaginable that doesn't hurt your eyes. It's of warmth and beauty, and I felt bathed in this light. Something that I longed to just stay in. I wanted to stay there. I could think of never coming back to this earthly plane. And it was at that time 3 beings appeared to me. And they had told me what the meaning of life was, what I was supposed to do, and of future events that was going to take place in this world. The events were not one of happy times, but of very hard, difficult, painful times where we were going to suffer beyond belief. There was going to be a lot of earth changes, volcanoes, earthquakes. We were going to have a war that was going to be unrecognizable to us. They had also told me that we would be going into a depression unlike any depression we've ever experienced. A lot of lives would be lost, but then a lot would make it through. And in the end, life would be one that we have never experienced, of such beauty and love. We would be on a much heightened level in our minds and in our souls. They had told me that I would not remember everything that they had said, and then they told me I had to go back. I said, "I don't want to go back." They said, "You have to go back. You're not done yet." And it was at that moment that I came down very hard in my body. I was not a happy camper, to be back, to say the least. I was light, I was free, I was at home, and I wanted to stay there. Although I knew that I had a job to do here, I knew I had my lessons to finish, and there were other lives that I needed to touch. I needed to live my life in unconditional love, which is what I was shown. If you would like to hear more about my story and in much greater detail, please visit me at www.aroomnearby. My book is on Amazon.com and BarnesandNobles.com. Thank you so much, and God bless.